All right. Hi, guys. Welcome to this webinar. My name is Kayla, and I work in career services at the Lincoln Center campus. I'm really excited that you guys all chose to tune in today. Obviously, this topic is something that is super applicable for so many different people, no matter what you're studying, what year you are. We're going to have a presentation with a couple slides first, and then at the end, you'll get a chance to ask any questions that you might have. So a couple options with questions. You can put them through the chat box. I'll get them. If you want to keep a question anonymous, feel free to send it to me directly and I'll ask it anonymously if there's something that maybe you don't want the whole group to know that you're asking. As Casey mentioned, this webinar is going to be available on YouTube. So if you do have to head out early, or if you know someone who maybe wasn't able to tune in for the first half, no big deal. It'll be posted probably within the next week. And yeah, that's kind of it. So thanks for tuning in. And now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Casey.
Sorry, I did the classic start speaking while you're still on mute. We've been on Zoom for what, 2 months, and I'm still doing that. Sorry, thanks so much, Kayla. I'm really excited to have you all here. I've been thinking this is probably a workshop we should offer every year, because every year there's things that happen and people don't wind up having an internship for the summer. But I think now more than ever, it's really applicable. We've been having a lot of questions from students about, oh, I had an internship, but then I got rescinded, or it was postponed till next year. What should I do this summer? Or people who just maybe got a late start on applying and then the pandemic hit, so things changed their plans. So today we're going to be going over a couple of options that you do have if you don't have something lined up for the summer, and how to kind of continue thinking about careers this summer as well. Like Kayla mentioned, if you have questions at any point, just pop it into the chat box. She and I will be talking over some of these slides, and then at one point our colleague Mark might be joining us as well to talk about portfolios. So you might have 3 of us giving you some advice today. Okay, well, to start off, the first thing I would say is keep applying. There actually are people who are still hiring for summer internships, and I just kind of want to get this out of the way right away. If you go on Handshake, you'll still see some options there. In particular, we've added a remote label. So if you're searching on Handshake and you go to filters, all the way down, we'll label all incoming jobs if they're remote with that remote tag. So there are still things you could be doing from home. And then make sure if you are interested in applying for internships for the fall, continue to do that. So I know things are unclear right now. Some of the messaging that Fordham is sending out isn't even clear. Can everyone just make sure their mic is muted? Thanks. But it's better to start applying if you do see something. In general, I would say one of the real benefits of attending Fordham, attending a school in New York City, is that you do have the option for interning during the school year. I know this isn't always possible for everyone. I know some STEM students have really intense labs, or if people are, trying to graduate early, condensing coursework, that type of thing. But compared to students who are attending schools that don't have, major city attached to it, you do have this advantage of during the school year, internships tend to be a little bit less competitive. So it's not all hope is lost if you don't have something for the summer. You can be applying for the fall, or looking forward even more to next spring. So if you see something that you would be interested in for the fall, I would suggest to start applying for those. You can also consider pivoting to a different industry, and this will depend on kind of where you're at with your job search in general. If you were really finalized on what you were going into versus whether you're kind of still exploring. But as we all know, some industries have been hit harder by this pandemic than others. So if you were interested in, for example, working in operations for an airline, and now the airline industry isn't really hiring because they're taking a big hit, but healthcare needs lots of workers, right? So what transferable skills do you have from, interested in working in operations for airlines that you can apply to healthcare or a hospital? Lots of logistics, transferable skills like that. And maybe there are transferable skills that you can learn over the summer, which we'll talk about a little bit later as well. If you have been on one of these webinars before, we've been talking about this candor site for hiring freezes. So if there are companies that you're particularly interested in, but you're not sure if they're hiring or not, you can check out that website. They'll have some updates there. Things do depend on different departments. So maybe, you had an internship lined up in one department this summer and your internship got rescinded or something because that department isn't hiring anymore, but another department within that company is. So things do change depending on your specific area of interest. Another thing to keep in mind, we're seeing a lot of this talk recently about micro internships. So for those of you who haven't heard of micro internships, basically they're kind of like small projects that people need help with. And even some traditional internships have pivoted to this model. So if you're thinking of a traditional internship over the summer, okay, you have your 10 weeks, you go to the office every day, 9 to 5, you have a couple different managers who will think of things for you to do. Maybe you have one big capstone project at the end. It's kind of like this cumulative experience. Whereas, maybe in the day-to-day, they would have you working on, this one project, and then a couple weeks later, this other project, that kind of thing. Some internships have now condensed their schedule. So they have, 2 or 3 weeks of an internship this summer as opposed to 10 weeks. And within that, they're having these kind of small projects. And now the micro internships have really they kind of mirror that model, and it's people who need specific help on a certain project, but not necessarily can't commit to an intern for a full 10 weeks or something like that. So people who just need a little bit of assistance, and they post for a micro internship. So a site that's free for students that you can check out that has these micro internships is Parker Dewey. If you just search them, there's some other micro internship platforms as well, but I know that one is free for students. Some people might also post these on Handshake, but I would say you probably see more traditional internships on Handshake. Okay, it wouldn't be a presentation on careers if I didn't talk about networking. Okay, it's great. You have all those keep applying tips, but you're like, Casey, I'm on this webinar because I have been applying and I'm not hearing back from anyone. What should I do if I don't have anything this summer for real? Okay, first thing is the networking. It's really key. And if you haven't done any networking before, I would say start with Handshake. I'm going to talk about Handshake for everything, but it can also be really useful for networking purposes. And the reason is it's a little bit less intimidating. So one of the first things you can do is reach out to other students. So I recommend this a lot for students who maybe aren't sure what they want to major in, going into Handshake and looking for some upperclassmen who have that major and asking them about what their experience has been like. But you could do this for anyone, people who have interned at companies that you would like to work for one day, recent alumni, people who are graduating this year or the year before, something like that, who are working at a company you'd like to work for. Or maybe, we just talked about pivoting to different industries. Maybe you just want to learn more about a certain industry and you see some students who are working there. You can reach out to them. And this tends to be a little bit less intimidating than reaching out to an alum or someone at that company more specifically, like on LinkedIn or something like that. Because these people and have, they're the people who are on this webinar right now. They're the people who are in your classes. There are people who are in your clubs. So I would definitely suggest reaching out to other students. And you can also see by who has left reviews for a specific company. So that's one way of going about it. Another would be just kind of clicking in the students page more generally. There's a couple different ways you can identify students you'd want to do an informational interview with. You can also see a public staff list for companies on Handshake. So if you were to click on an employer page, some of them will have kind of like in the right-hand side of the page, it'll say public staff, and it'll have a list of the recruiter. Shoot an email to the recruiter and say, hey, I saw that you aren't hiring for interns this summer, but I'm interested in working for your company one day in the future. I'd love to learn a little bit more about, XYZ. Try to reach out with some questions, establish a connection. Will you be back on campus in the fall? Would love to be able to chat, that kind of thing. You can also see who the public staff is there, and then also go and add them on LinkedIn. Another feature of Handshake I really love is the Q&A section. So these are questions that have been asked by students from all Handshake partner schools, so not just Fordham. So you have thousands of questions there, and they can range from the very general to the very specific. I see questions there like, what should I do with my, XYZ major versus what is the interview process like for this specific company's this specific job, right? So there's a real range of types of questions, but they've been answered by other students, by alumni, by career counselors. So definitely play around in that Q&A. And oftentimes people will also indicate if they are open to being contacted in that Q&A. So if you had a question about a specific company that somebody had answered, you can usually message them straight from there. Virtual events, there's still lots of employers who are hosting virtual events, and we're hosting virtual events too. Just next week is our STEM fair. It's going to be our first virtual fair. We're really excited about it. So if you're interested in any STEM opportunities, there's still this large scale recruiting event available to you. Just go on Handshake and you can check it out. There's also smaller events that companies are hosting, just an individual company. They'll post about it on Handshake, so you can see all of those there. And of course, it's not online networking if I don't talk about LinkedIn. There's a bunch of things you can do with LinkedIn. You can join relevant groups for your industry. You can connect with your classmates and stuff like that. I really suggest taking advantage of the alumni tool. So if you just go to the Fordham University page and then you click on alum, you'll see every Fordham alum with a LinkedIn, and it's like over 90,000 or something crazy. And you can sort. You can say, okay, I want to look at Fordham alumni who are in this industry in this city. And then you'll kind of come up with a list there, and you can go through their profile, read a little bit about their experience. And if you want to know more, you can message them. Say, hey, I'm a current Fordham student. I see you're a Fordham alum. You seem to be very successful in your role. I'd love to chat with you a little bit more about XYZ. And people are very, very open to this type of thing. Sometimes, again, I know it can be intimidating to reach out, which is why I suggest starting with Handshake. But the example that I use is if a student from your high school reached out to you and said, hey, I'm thinking of going to Fordham. Can I chat with you about your Fordham experience? You'd probably be really open to chatting with them, right? So that's usually how alumni feel about current Fordham students interested in their industry. Okay. And then next, connections on LinkedIn would be your classmates. So if you don't have a LinkedIn yet and you're just going to build one over the summer, don't forget to connect with your classmates, people in your club, people on your sports teams, your professors, and your personal network. A lot of times people really underestimate the power of their personal network. Your aunts and uncles and family friends and people from high school and people at your part-time job over the summer, from high school, stuff like that, at all them. Okay. For now on self-reflection, I think it would be great if we could talk a little bit about portfolios. Mark, are you on the call?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. So Mark's going to take over and just talk about his experience a little bit. Mark is our Assistant Director for Marketing and Student Engagement. He has his master's degree in graphic design and knows a lot about being able to market yourself. So he's going to chat a little bit about that now.
Yes, I actually have some links. Would you mind giving me some host abilities, Casey?
Yeah, sure thing.
I would love to be able to share my screen with you guys. I have some resources that I really want to share with you also. I mean, I just joined, but I'm sure Casey has been telling you about developing yourself in this time of, if your internship situation, you're not quite sure what's going on at the moment. There's still a lot to be done for yourself. And I just wanted to share some resources with you guys. So I'm going to share my screen really quickly with you. Share. And hold on one moment. So first of all, if I have any marketing majors in here or people that are studying design or marketing, like I said, or advertising, the AIGA is a really great place to start. It's basically like with any other industry, it's a professional association organization where you can find information about seminars. You can see what's going on in that industry. You can see different resources as to like design jobs, the future of design, student resources. A great resource that we have, and I'll show you in a second, is called What Can I Do with This Major? And it's something that a lot of students use for like career resources, figuring out how to write their resume for a specific industry, those kinds of things. So this is something, if you're in any of those fields, this is something that you can sort of take a look at. Okay. And this is what sort of helped me in the time of like between graduating and actually finding the job, my first job, developing myself, my skill set, and those kinds of things. So there's that. So this is something that I would sort of walk through. And actually, a lot of these professional associations you can join at a student price. And these things can sort of just, they're a lot cheaper. And you have a lot of help sort of like getting yourself prepared, going into your summer, coming out of your summer, going into your next internship, and just developing yourself as an individual and a professional. So I wanted to talk about like portfolios. What are portfolios? What should go into a portfolio? How should you be curating your portfolio? That's something, curating your portfolio is something that I am always telling students, it's up to your own discretion. Like, what do you want? What kind of images do you want in there? How do you want to be wording things in your portfolio? And Behance is a really great way to sort of start that process for yourself, because anything that you do is going to involve a level of research, right? So research involves, yes, some reading, but also the visual aspect. And visual aspect is like looking at other people's portfolios, seeing how they're treating their work, how they're showing their work to other people, on interviews, when they're networking with other professionals. These are the kinds of things that you want to look at. So I would always suggest setting up a profile on a website like this, because it helps with research, and you can even post your own work here. So we're just going to look at some, we can just look at some examples here. So all of these images are from different designers from around the world. And this is them just presenting their work. And what they do, which I think is great, and this is just a sample, they create, this is basically like, how do they want to present their work to different folks in the industry? So this is just the designer's aesthetic, and this is what they're showing. How, I guess, I don't know what this project is, but also you can see on the side, like you can follow this person and you can see the kinds of technology that they're using. You can even save it and you can appreciate things on here. When you collect sort of like a cache of like examples for yourself, like I said, you can go back later on when you're sort of refining your own portfolio. You can say, you can take pieces from other people's portfolios and say, okay, this is my way of sort of presenting my work. So this is something that I would sort of just walk through. And this link, if you go into, I'm going to open up Handshake. Hold on one moment. Casey, I'm going to use your profile if you don't mind. I'm going to view this as one of you guys, view as this user. So if you're going to Career Center and you go to resources, you can find Behance. Ooh, let me see if it's in here. It should be in here. Definitely thought it was in here. Maybe it's not. Either way, this is something that's going to be in our resource page. I can't find it at the moment, but it's going to be on a resource page. But this is definitely something that you want to look at and sort of, like I said, take stock of what you want to do, and it can sort of help you organize your work. Another website that's really great is called Dribbble. Dribbble is the same sort of concept. You can look at different designers or different professionals in that field. So it's not everyone is a designer. Some people are doing something that is within a field, but maybe they're not designing something. Maybe they're laying out projects that they've done. And a really important thing that I would think about too is, even if you don't necessarily have design work, like let's say you're a freshman or a sophomore and you haven't done a deep dive into your industry yet, class projects, papers that you've written, you want to keep writing samples, anything that you know that you've done particularly well in a class. Even if, let's say, you had a project, you didn't necessarily get to finish your project, go back, don't just let a project sit dormant. Go back, refine your project, come to us, and we can sort of take a look at whatever work you've done. So I have a little bit of an idea about what design, like what works in design. Other folks in our department have expertise in other fields. So that may be a really good way to sort of get some sort of feedback on some of your work, and utilize your professors. At this point, everything's obviously on Zoom. It's, you know, set up a meeting with a professor if they have office hours. What do they think about this work? How does it fit into what you're trying to present to employers? What are the things that work in interviews? What are certain employers looking for? These are the kinds of questions you should be asking people within your network about how to sort of develop the work that you're doing. Another thing that I wanted to share with you all, and this is something that I'm going to add to the Handshake resource page, is called Skillshare. I don't know if anyone has talked about this yet. I don't know if you talked about this yet, Casey.
Not
But
yet.
Was it a part of your
No,
presentation?
go into it.
Okay. So Skillshare is really great because you can literally learn any new skill that you want to. So if you want to learn how to perfect your portfolio, if you want to learn, like you see this video, if you want to learn photography, you could literally, this thing will teach you how to be like an African hair braider if you wanted to. Like, you can learn whatever skill that you want. And you can, obviously, you can browse through all of these different things here. Okay, so this is something that and it's free right now. So this is something that I would definitely look into, because with all of this downtime, you really want to like look at some of the projects you've either started working on, haven't started yet, and sort of getting the fine-tuned skills that you need to sort of make the project that you want, to bring out the best that you can in yourself and in your work. So this is something that I would definitely sort of take a look at. Something that I would consider from a lot of you at this point is UI and UX, which is user interface and user experience design. That is going to be a field that a lot of people are going to be moving into. And even if it's not your, like the first skill, like let's say if you're part of the Gabelli School and you're a marketing major and that's not necessarily your industry, this is something that I would still be sort of like learning about, because this is where everything, obviously everything's online, everything's going to continue being online, and that these are only skills that more and more people are going to need. So this is something that I would definitely take advantage of. You can even see business analytics, freelance and entrepreneurship. Those are things, if you are someone that hasn't had an internship yet and you're not quite sure sort of where that, you know, when that's going to happen for yourself, freelancing, learning how to freelance, learning how to sort of put your work out there so that people will want to be able to use you as an independent source of for work. You can sort of figure out the freelance and entrepreneurship, leadership management you see there, and then marketing. So these are all things that I would sort of look at, and these will be in the resource section, like I said, in Handshake. And so there's all of these things. I'm trying to think of anything else that I wanted to show you. I think these are pretty much it for now. If you guys want to set up a meeting with myself, I'm on Handshake, obviously, and I will be glad to look at anyone's portfolio at any given time, sort of give you guys some feedback. Yeah, so that's about all I got.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mark. That was really helpful.
No problem. No problem.
And Will, can you, I think I took my host powers away when I gave them to you.
I'll give them right back to you. Hold on 1 second.
Transfer of power over here.
Am I going to, of course I can't remember how to do it now.
Click the 3 buttons in the top of my video, my head, and it should say make host.
Yeah, right. Forgot.
Perfect.
Okay, cool.
Sorry about that.
There you go.
All right. Awesome. So let's hop back to self-reflection, where we'll be talking about a lot of what Mark just went over. So in thinking about what you want to focus on this summer, updating your materials, right? So Mark talked about kind of not forgetting about any of your projects, and that's huge, right? So the stuff that you do in your classes are things you want to be able to talk to employers about. So take a look at your resume. Is there anything you can update? You know, you probably have a new GPA after this semester. Maybe not if all of your classes were fail. You can add new relevant coursework. Any projects that you've worked on, you can incorporate into your resume or portfolio. Think about the third paragraph of your cover letter, which I know seems kind of strange if you're not necessarily applying for anything yet, but something I noticed working with students is the third paragraph tends to be hard for people. So if you haven't written a cover letter before, basically the third paragraph, you're talking about why you want to work at that company, right? Why, if you could work anywhere in the world, why that company specifically? And you can only have a good third paragraph if you know yourself and you know why you want to be in that industry, in that company, in that role. So reflect a little bit about your career choices. You know, what is it that's fueling you? You know, what is this desire coming from? Is it from a freshman course that you had where the professor made the industry sound really interesting? Is it something you've always wanted to do since you were a child? And why is that? Or are you not sure yet? You're still figuring it out. You know, this is the time for self-reflection. Update your LinkedIn, you know, with the same thing that you have on your resume. The good thing about LinkedIn is you don't need to condense it to one page the way you do have to with the resume. Mark talked about different portfolios. You can link to your work through your LinkedIn as well. You can have your own website depending on your industry. You know, these might look a little bit different. And identify gaps in your experience, right? So look at job descriptions that you're not necessarily going to be applying for, right? I would say if you're a freshman, look at your dream job description for a full-time role. If you're a senior, look at job descriptions for your dream job 10 years down the road. What's listed in that job description that you don't yet have? And how much of that will you eventually have? And how much do you need to kind of start working on? Sometimes it's specific things like certain softwares that you can find, you can learn how to do on Skillshare or something like that. Sometimes it's more general, a type of experience. But identify those gaps now and kind of reflect on how you can get past them. And then build a new skill. Skillshare is certainly a great way for this. LinkedIn Learning is another one. Some of those courses are free, but you also get, I think, a 30-day LinkedIn premium trial. Be strategic about when you want to use that. But if there's a course there you want to take advantage of. YouTube, I would say instead of just clicking around on YouTube, because that's a pit we've all fallen into, try to find a multi-video course and stick with it. Identify in advance what you want to learn out of there. Coursera, just like a Skillshare, you want to decide what you want to learn in advance if possible. And then, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of Duolingo for languages. Maybe upgrade that basic skill to a conversational on your resume or a conversational to a fluent. The possibilities are endless here. Okay, now I'm going to hand it over to Kayla to talk about the second half of our presentation here.
All right, hey guys. You guys have a lot of voices on this webinar today, so hopefully it's helpful just to kind of like break up some of the info. Casey, do you want to like click on the slide again for me? So I wanted to come on here and talk about side hustles. If there's anyone on this webinar right now who knows me, you probably know that I am a huge advocate for developing a side hustle. I can't tell you guys how many times I meet with students and we'll be talking about their resume or just talking about like interviewing and what to talk about with employers. And they're like, well, I haven't had an internship or I haven't had a job yet in this field. Like, I'll take one example. I worked with a student who really wanted to go into sports journalism or sports marketing. And she was like, I've never worked for like a sports team or a network or anything like that. Towards the end of the hour, it came out that she had a YouTube channel with like thousands of subscribers where she talked about sports. So I really want you guys to start thinking about the ways in which you can start developing those passion projects of yours. And you have a couple of options with how you can go about that. Your side hustle can be something that is super applicable to the field that you want to go into. And that student who has a YouTube channel about sports, that's a perfect example, right? Like, it's directly applicable to what she wants to do long-term. If employers in her field see that, they will be super impressed, and it just like shows her knowledge about the industry. So yeah, you can go that route. It can be something applicable. Or it can be something totally unrelated to what you want to do, but maybe just something to like earn you extra money. I've definitely been talking to a lot of students over the last couple of weeks who are like, well, I know that like an internship might not pan out for this summer, but I need money. Like, I need to pay bills. I want to, put some money in savings. Side hustle is a great way to do that. My side hustle has nothing to do with my full-time job, and that's kind of why I like it. Like, my job is very social. what I do with you guys. Like I meet with you guys all day, every day, and I talk a lot. And in my side hustle, I don't really have to talk. Like my side hustle is very individual, and it's a lot of solo work. So you can also pick a passion project that kind of like complements areas that you're not being fulfilled in your regular work. Sometimes people will say, well, I want to do a side hustle, but I don't really know what to do. So I can't really decide this for you, but here are some options. YouTube, so start a YouTube channel if that's something that you're interested in. Freelance writing or design, Mark kind of talked about that earlier. Selling your artwork or like selling things that you create, make an Etsy page, sell on Instagram. I think that those are all awesome ideas. Social media management, I know for a lot of students interested in marketing or advertising, they will just kind of reach out to influencers, specifically influencers who are like just kind of starting out, and manage their Instagram, manage their, I was going to say Snapchat, but Snapchat's not really that big for you guys anymore. Like other platforms that they have that they would need help with. The next bullet that I put on there is be realistic, but also know your worth. Like I think that when you guys are, if you do choose to pursue a side hustle or start a side hustle, at first you're going to be like, oh, well, I can't charge anyone for this, or like, I'm just getting started. Who cares what I have to do? It's kind of true to an extent. Like it's okay to do some work for free to start and like kind of, you know, learn the ropes. But once you feel that you are good at what you're doing, definitely set rates and stick to them. So if you're selling your artwork, like have a scale of how much you want to make with them. If you are offering marketing resources or you're writing articles, like know what you want to charge for them. You at the end of the day are giving a service to someone, so you do want to charge appropriately. And if you're not 100% sure what that range should be, feel free to just like take a look online, like go into some Reddit threads, look on Glassdoor. That might be kind of tricky for side hustles, but just doing some informal research I think is really, really helpful. Develop a portfolio. Mark talked about that, but like even if you're not in a design field and you just want to like start building up what you've done related to your side hustle, I would definitely get that organized, right? Like keep track of everything, because if your side hustle is something that you want to do long-term, you'll just have a record of all of that. Okay. Some of you guys are just also thinking about like ways to kind of give back to your communities during this time, which I think is so incredible. So volunteering is a great option over the next couple of months. And you guys probably know about a lot of these options, so I won't really like talk too much about them. But putting yourself out there in ways where you can maybe like get groceries for people in your community, whether they're people who are like immunocompromised or elderly people, making and donating face masks. I know that's been a huge side hustle lately, which I think is just awesome. And then also giving back to some local organizations. So if you are still in the New York City area, there are a lot of really great organizations that will kind of help you find ways to give back, like NYC Service. And then there's also Volunteer NY for Westchester and Hudson Valley. And I'm a Jersey girl, so I should know something for Jersey, but I don't off the top of my head. So I'll get back to you guys on that. Okay. And then just like some general tips, this is applicable no matter what you want to do with your summer, whether you want to pursue your side hustle, you want to keep applying to internships, you want to do micro internships. I really, really recommend making a schedule and getting organized. Obviously, this is an incredibly stressful and unusual time. So I'm not saying you have to like do it to the T, right? Like when we're in a normal semester. And I'm not really a believer in like, get dressed like you would for work and like leave your apartment and then go back to your apartment. I think that's kind of silly. I mean, if it works for you, great. I'm not saying that, but I do think it's important to just like have a routine, whatever routine works best for you. And do start to identify some of your goals, right? Like if you really want an internship, I think it's so helpful to actually like take out a pen and paper and write down what types of internships you're interested in. What do you want to accomplish by getting that internship? When would you like to get that internship, or at least start hearing back from employers? Keeping track of all of those things is really, really important. And also being flexible. So this kind of goes back to what I was saying a minute ago, where it's like, this is such a weird time. nothing is like it is normally. So just knowing that even if you don't find yourself in the exact place you thought you would for the summer, what's another way that you can maybe achieve some of the goals that you set for yourself, or just keep yourself productive for the summer? Okay, and last thing that I want to talk about are just some of the ways that career services can help you guys during this time. A lot of this you guys might know because you're on this webinar, so you have some type of basic understanding of how our office works. But probably the most helpful thing is going to be scheduling virtual appointments through Handshake. You can create an hour-long career counseling appointment with one of us. You do not need to use the full hour, but it is available to you. And we can do either a phone or Zoom appointment, whichever you prefer, and you can indicate that on Handshake. And we can talk about absolutely anything. So it's anywhere from like, I know exactly what I want to do, how do I get there, to I have no idea what I want to do, where do I start, or just anywhere on that spectrum. Mark actually showed you guys the resource library on Handshake, so that's going to be really helpful for you guys, especially as you start to like develop your materials and apply to places. Virtual workshops like this one, you guys know how to access that. That's going to be on the events tab on Handshake. And also just like keeping posted on the events tab, because there are some employers who will be posting job specific or industry specific events online. Okay. Oh, and if you're still seeking for the seniors on this webinar, if you're still looking for a position, or even if you found one, definitely let us know so that we can figure out how to help you during this time, and also just have like our records up to date on what you're up to. Social media. So if you guys want to follow us on social media, feel free to give us a follow there, or at least check us out. All right. I am looking at the chat box, and I've only gotten one question, so we're going to ask that. But if you guys have questions right now, feel free to write. You can either write everyone in the chat, or you can write me directly, and I'm going to ask them to Casey. Oh, this isn't really a question. It's a suggestion. Thank you. Yeah, you guys can feel free to send suggestions too. Someone is recommending a website called Pangea.app. So it's PAN. I'll actually send it to the whole group to find freelance projects, especially for social media management and computer science. So that is super helpful if any of you guys are interested in that. Okay.
That's great. And perfect example of peer-to-peer helping, right? Remember we were talking about earlier about reaching out to other students on Handshake. So here's a perfect example of it working.
Exactly. Okay, somebody asked, well, Casey, I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it for you because I've been talking for a few
Trick
minutes.
question.
When and where will this recorded session be available?
Good question. So if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so. You can just look for Fordham Futures on YouTube. We've recently revamped it, so we're slowly adding more videos as they get processed. So you'll see already up there, we have a 15-minute clinic with Kayla from last month is up there. There's also some employer sessions up there. So this one will be on YouTube in about a week.
Okay, next question is, will career services be doing any resume and cover letter writing workshops this summer? And perhaps something that involves one-on-one, sorry, forget the last half of that question. Will we be doing any resume and cover letter writing workshops?
Yeah. So the good thing about this, if there is a good thing, normally we don't do programming over the summer because you guys aren't here. But this summer, because we're connecting virtually anyway, we are actually planning a lot more programming than we normally would. So resume and cover letter is definitely on the docket. If you don't see one of those workshops scheduled yet, definitely make an appointment with one of us. We also have walk-in hours. We have virtual walk-in hours. You can see instructions for how to access the virtual Zoom Monday through Friday, 1 to 3. You can see the instructions on Handshake, what link to pick. Like Kayla said, you can make an appointment with us. And then actually next week, in advance of the STEM fair, we're going to have 2 resume rushes, which is kind of like extended walk-in hours for resumes specifically. And those events are up on Handshake now already as well.
Okay, great. Someone is asking regarding classes that they've taken or projects that they've done in their classes, how do you write about that on your LinkedIn, or how do you like show that to employers?
Yeah, good question. So I'll tell you guys what I recommend, and then maybe Kayla, if you have different recommendations, you can jump into. So if it's just a class that you want to talk about, I think the relevant coursework section on your resume where you just kind of list the courses, or the coursework section on LinkedIn where you just kind of list the title of them, is fine. But if you've done a more in-depth project and you really want to talk about all the skills that went into it, which I definitely suggest that you do, on your resume, I would suggest making it an experience. So the same way you have kind of like for a job, you would have your employer name, your title, city, state, and then your dates, format it the same way, you know, Fordham University, XYZ department, comma, student, comma, Bronx, New York, these dates. And then in your bullets, you would format it the same way. So you start with the action verb, then quantify where possible, add your product or result. So it'll look exactly the same. You can do on LinkedIn, I believe there's a specific project section where you can then also upload. If it was a PowerPoint presentation or a research paper, something like that, you can do the same thing there, or you can just have it also as your experience with the bullet points.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree with all of that. Okay, a really, really good question that came in is for someone who lives in a more rural area, not close to any major metropolitan areas, what would a typical summer internship look like for someone like that?
Interesting. So I'm assuming like right now during kind of like the remote.
The student actually says not necessarily during the pandemic, but just in general. But maybe you could answer both scenarios.
Okay. So it's going to really depend, I would say, on the industry and what is available in your area, right? So if you're in a particularly rural area, but maybe if you drive 20 minutes down the road, something, there's a town or something that has a couple of different employers that are searching, versus maybe are you in a very rural area and there's just kind of one big employer in the whole area that's easy to drive to, and that's where you would have to be interning. But now with kind of the shift to remote, there's going to be so many more remote opportunities in general now that everybody knows it's easy to go easier to go remote than initially anticipated. That a lot of these, if you're living in a rural area, you'll still have access to a lot of the internships that you would have, even if you were in New York, right? Somebody in, downtown Brooklyn is going to have the same access to the internship that you will in your remote area, because all you need is the internet connection. So I would say, and I mean, if you're in a rural area, you would know this better, but I think the most difficult thing tends to be like stable Wi-Fi and getting hotspots and stuff like that. Not sure if that answers the question, but.
Oh yeah, definitely answers the question. We had one other recommendation come in about Code Academy. So if you're looking to learn how to code, which I know is something that you guys like often want to do, like I meet so many students who are like, I want to learn how to code, but I don't really have the time. Code Academy, someone says that they are doing free 90-day memberships for college students. That was a couple weeks ago, so it still might be a promotion that's going on right now. Okay, somebody just asked, how does Resume Rush work?
Question. So Resume Rush, if you've ever attended it in person, we're trying to mimic it remotely as much as possible. So if you attended Resume Rush in person before the career fair, you'll come into the office with a printed out copy of your resume, you'll swipe in at the front desk, you'll sit down, and then a counselor will come out and say, oh, you're here for Resume Rush? Let's go over here, we'll go over your resume. We're trying to do the same thing remotely. So you'll log into a main Zoom room, and just like this is, you'll have to be kind of logged into your Fordham Zoom account. Which you all should be kind of by default now anyway. You'll log in. Lindsay will be there if you've ever gone to the Rose Hill office. Lindsay, manages the front desk up there. She'll give you a friendly greeting and then say if there's a wait or not. We'll have two counselors ready. If they're with somebody, then you'll just hang out in the waiting room with Lindsay, have a nice little chat. And then when there's someone open, she'll move you into a breakout room. So I don't know if any of you have done breakout rooms in Zoom before. It's a good skill to get familiarized with, because I know a lot of companies who are doing interviews will use breakout rooms to manage interviews. So basically, it's like a sub room within Zoom you would be moved to. Share your screen with the counselor. So if you've gone on a one-on-one appointment, maybe the counselor's had you like email your resume or something like that. But for Resume Rush, we're going to stick with screen sharing just because it's a little bit quicker. We can kind of get the advice to you. I'd suggest having like a notepad or another device to take notes as you're kind of sharing your screen with the resume up there. The counselor will give you advice. You'll say, great. I agree or I don't agree. And then you will leave the meeting and the counselor will go back to take the next person.
Awesome. Okay. The next question that came in, it's kind of funny because I think that Casey, you and I will probably have different opinions on this, so maybe we can both answer it. So the question is, do you recommend developing a generic cover letter even if you are not applying? My answer would be no. I think what Casey said earlier about like developing that last paragraph, but it should be more about like, why do you want to be in the industry? Like I will tell students to think of it as like, what's your mission statement? And yeah, like, why are you passionate about this? Like what lights a fire for you about this field or this industry? And if it helps you to think of it more as like a LinkedIn bio, because a lot of the times what you're writing in your cover letter can also be covered in your LinkedIn bio, that might be a more useful use of your time. Yeah, I typically say don't worry about a cover letter until you have a job in front of you. Now, if you wanted to find some like sample job descriptions that you would want to apply to in the future, feel free to write some cover letters. But I would almost rather you, instead of writing a cover letter for a job that you're not applying to, I'd rather you take the time to like work on LinkedIn or network or develop a skill. So that's my opinion, but other people might disagree. What do you think, Casey?
Yeah, I completely agree. And I realize how misleading my advice probably sounded earlier. Sorry for that. I don't mean to kind of like create a cover letter to talk about yourself. I think I just look at so many cover letters all day that I think of the LinkedIn bio in terms of the third paragraph of the cover letter. So don't write one, but just do exactly what Kayla said. Think about, if your LinkedIn bio or on Handshake too, you're kind of like my journey section. Just do a little bit of self-reflection as to, why you're interested and, what brought you down this path. Forget the cover letter thing. Think about it as a LinkedIn bio.
Awesome. Okay. One other suggestion coming in for you guys, just about like a website to check out, is that there's a 3-month free trial to Rosetta Stone for students available right now. And on the website, it says K-12, but it actually works with the Fordham email. So use that Fordham email to your advantage. Okay, it looks like those are all the questions for now. Maybe we'll give it like one more minute just in case anybody else has like some burning last minute questions. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please feel free to reach out to either one of us, either via email or just to schedule an appointment. We would really love to hear from you guys over the summer. Even if you feel like you don't have a ton of things to talk about, I think it's better to just make an appointment and get familiar with us. And as I am saying that, someone actually asked a question. This is a good question, actually. For LinkedIn, should we use our Fordham email or our personal email? What do you think, Casey?
Good question. So it's up to you, but you have your Fordham email forever. Fordham never wants to not be able to contact you. So I know that question comes up a lot because other schools, you lose access to your email after 6 months or something. So you're like, oh, well, why would I use this if I'm going to lose it? With Fordham, it's unique in that you have it forever, so you might as well take advantage of it. That being said, I went to Fordham for my undergrad, my master's, my PhD. I'm working at Fordham now, and my LinkedIn is not my Fordham address. So really, it's up to you.
Cool. All right, I think that is it for now. Casey, did you have anything that you wanted to end on?
Nope, that's all. Kayla, maybe could you chat our emails in the box if you haven't already, so people can contact us if they need anything. This will be up on YouTube as soon as possible. Don't forget about the STEM fair next week. Definitely check it out. Like I said, it's a virtual fair. We'll have some grad schools there as well, in addition to employers. So if grad school is something you're thinking about, lots of different employers. Good chance to practice your virtual networking. Other than that, just enjoy the rest of the week, everyone. Congrats on being done with finals.
Casey, one more question.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Is there a template? Actually, 2 more questions. Is there a template for a well-written cover letter?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Yeah, so if you go to the resource library, we have we call it the Anita cover letter. The Anita cover letter is in there. Also, if you all should be getting the Career Services Insider newsletter every 2 weeks, and within that newsletter is a link to a Google Drive that has a bunch of templates and stuff. That's also another way of accessing besides the resource library, but it's in there.
Okay, great. And one last question for now is what website can we visit to find volunteer opportunities?
Good question. So I would suggest looking for local volunteer opportunities. So for example, if you're still in the New York City area, NYC Service, which Kayla talked about, you can go on that website and it'll connect you with local ones. I'm not really familiar with any outside of the New York area, but just do a little bit of search. I'm sure there's other remote ones too, but I think looking at local opportunities is going to be the best way to have a strong impact on your community.
This is a really good question. How will the STEM career fair work next week?
Yes, great question. So we're partnering with a platform called Career Eco. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but so you should have gotten emails about how to sign up for a Career Eco account. There'll be like little booths, and you can either you can chat with people there. You can set up notifications. You can indicate your interest. There should be in the emails that you've gotten sent out about the STEM fair, kind of, I don't want to say training videos, but like informative videos about the platform and how to use it. So I would check that out. If for some reason you hadn't gotten the emails about the STEM fair, it's in Handshake. So if you just go into Handshake and you look for the STEM fair, you'll see all the details there. And that'll show you, I mean, the same way as any other fair, look to see who's coming, do your research in advance, prepare some questions. You'll want to log into the Career Eco platform beforehand, because then you can upload your resume. You can see who's attending and all of that. So I would say log into it through Handshake if you haven't gotten the emails about it.
Great, thanks. All right, I think that's it for today. Thanks, guys. Feel free to log out, and like we said, this will be available in a couple days on YouTube. Have a good day.
Have a good one, everyone. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.